and I welcome all of you today. Today we have 4 panelists and myself who will be speaking. Before I begin, I would like to declare that Nilesh, Mukund, Anasuya, Rupa, and myself as moderator have no relevant financial relationships with ineligible companies to disclose. So with that, today you are going to hear 4 very touching stories of South Asian patients and their families that were affected by heart disease. These are real stories, nothing is made up. These are the details of how 4 families coped with cardiovascular disease and how they emerged with more knowledge and more incentive to continue working on their health. Each of the stories are unique, and I ask you as the audience to listen closely to the details. What their experience was as patients and what their experience was as a caregiver. And I want you to use 2 lenses as you think about this. One is, how did the patient and the family cope with their illness? This is something that all of us can learn from in terms of what resources they used, what were the barriers that they faced, and how did they solve some of the difficulties that any of us could go through. The second lens that I'd like you to look through is one of how each patient and their family's beliefs about what caused their illness, and also what their unique needs were as a person, as a family, as an immigrant family here in the US, and how that affected the course of illness for them. Were there things that unexpectedly happened, and also how they resolved some of the issues that they had. Please remember that these stories you hear are only 4 examples. We actually interviewed over a dozen families, and if I could bring them all up on stage today, I would have loved to. But because of the constraints of time, we have picked 4 families that have unique stories to tell us, and you will hear some of the things that made each person's journey special, but also you will hear what are some of the common themes as South Asian immigrants to the US they faced when using the healthcare system here. I ask you as the audience to keep the details that you hear private and respect our panel members' willingness to share the details. You will not be able to draw any conclusions about all South Asians. These are just 4 examples. But rather, pay attention to the kind of questions that I ask about their own beliefs and the environment in which they had to cope with their illness. Think about what role each of you can play, whether you yourself are a patient, a caregiver, a healthcare provider, an administrator, or someone in a teaching position, or maybe multiple roles. What are the ways that you can empower yourself and others in your South Asian community to take more charge of your health, and with the goal that we have better outcomes? So Nilesh Bhai today is going to tell us a little bit about what he experienced during his cardiovascular health experience. So Nilesh Bhai, could you tell us a little bit about when did you first notice that something was wrong? When did you first have some experience with your heart?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here to share my experience with the front of the people. Actually, it started in 2012 when I was working in a pharmaceutical as a 3rd shift, and on the weekend I was doing the photography. So Friday I came home 6 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, and directly I went for the photography to cover my events. So after that I came home midnight at 12 o'clock or 12:30 in the morning. So my family member was not at home. There was Indian religious things. Garba was going on next to my apartment. So my family member was there. So we went there. So my niece, they were playing with Garba and everything. So they told me to come and join with us. So I went there and I started playing the Garba, and I completed my 1 and 2 round. After that, I was sweating. I was like feeling the short breath, and I feel like I had something going on. So I just came out from the auditorium and I went outside, get the fresh air, and I was sitting on the chair and take a deep breath. And I was like, after that 10-15 minutes, I was feeling okay. And then we went home. And next day, one of my family friend, he is helping the Asian community people. So I call him and I tell him, he say, you know what, you have to go to see the cardiologist, no matter what. So Sunday morning he took an appointment for me, and I went to the cardiologist doctor and they did my stress test, nuclear test, and doctor tell me you have a blockage somewhere. That's the reason we have to do the angiography. So he said, I'm going to make an appointment in a hospital and I'll tell you to come over there. And then they did the procedure and they did the angiography and they found my 3 artery was blocked. So doctor say, first 2 artery I will open and put the stent on it, and another one LED, which is the main artery, that's 100% done.
Oh my gosh.
So doctor say we cannot open the back to back. So after 2 months, we're going to do it again.
So you had a very critical health situation occur for you where you needed intervention. Can you tell us a little bit about, this was about how many years after you had come to the US?
I came in US in 2000 and 2012 this problem started.
So it had been about 12 years.
Yeah.
Were you working at the time?
Yeah, I was working in the store before and then I got a job in a pharmaceutical company. So I have insurance and everything on that time.
I see.
Yeah. So
And then what happened after you got the procedure done? What happened? How did you take care of your health after the procedure? Did you go for, your checkups every 3 months?
Yeah, actually, as soon as my procedure is done, I went back to work, and all of a sudden my HR people came to us and they say, now our company is moving to California, so you guys not going to have a job, 2 months you have. And they call the agency people, they contact us and they say, okay, you can apply for the new job. So after that I went to my doctor and I told him everything. So after 2 months I'm not going to have insurance.
So with this company moving, you were going to lose your insurance, is
Yes.
that right? I
Yeah.
see. So how were you feeling at that time, knowing that you had to follow up with your health?
So that time I have to take a medicine for my health.
Yes.
So I told my doctor, so my doctor said, don't worry, I'll take care of you. And every 3 months you have to come for my clinic for your checkup. And I'll write down the prescription. So that's how he helped me.
So he was writing prescriptions as well as seeing you without
Without insurance.
I see.
Right.
So that was a big help in terms
Yeah.
of keeping your treatment in control. So then tell me a little bit about what you learned about your risk as a South Asian in terms of your heart health. Were there things that you were doing in your lifestyle that were affecting how your illness was progressing?
Actually, doctor told me that is some kind of for the heart disease, like a genetic problem, if you have any familial problem in your family history. Second one is if you are smoking, that's another cause. And third is the hypertension, stress, all these things.
So he was able to tell you that, and as a South Asian, you had more increased risk.
Right.
What actions were you able to take to take care of your health? What things did you do to change and improve, any more further progression of your disease?
So if you have any kind of problem like this, just go to the doctor and see the doctor, and what the doctor says you have to agree with the doctor, and what the doctor gives you medicine, you make sure you have to take the medicine every day.
And were you able to do that?
Yes.
So you listened to the doctor.
Yes.
You were able to follow his instructions in terms of taking your medications, and you were able to get those medications from the pharmacy. Were you paying out of pocket at that time for the medications?
Yeah, I have to pay out of pocket.
I see. But at least the prescription you were able to receive during
right.
the visit. Okay. And so tell me a little bit about the factors again that you were working on. You were taking your medication. What about your smoking? Were you a smoker at that time?
Yeah, not on that time, but I used to smoke a long time back. And I came to USA in 2000. In 2002, I quit the smoking.
I see.
Yeah.
So it may have had some effect on your health, but at that time you had quit.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about why you quit. What made you decide?
Actually, it's very hard to quit the smoking, but it goes credit to my son. He is sitting here. That time he was like 10 years old, and all the family member was telling me to quit the smoking, but because a long time habit I couldn't. So he told me, one day he came to me, he said, "Dad, can you please stop smoking?" I said, "I'm trying, but I cannot." So he said, "Dad, tell me what you want me to do. If you want me to don't watch TV, I'm not going to watch TV." That time I realized, oh my God, 10 years old, my kid, he sacrificed so many things for me. So I have to do something for my family.
That's wonderful.
So that goes in my mind, and next day I called Turkey.
That's wonderful, Nilesh Bhai, that it was the bond between you and your son
Yes,
that motivated you to take
all the credit goes to my son Neil.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Neil, for caring so much for your dad. And you yourself wanted to continue your role as father to him, as a husband to your wife, and as a community member in the South Asian community. Since this episode happened, you've been very active in the South Asian community. Can you tell us a little bit about the work you do with the temple?
Yeah, actually we have a Hindu temple, and I try to help all the Indian community people who comes to the temple. Like the COVID was going on, that's the reason people have to take the vaccine. So we arrange the vaccine in the temple. So whoever cannot drive, we go to the home and bring them in our car and take to the temple and get the vaccine done, and we drive back to them home.
Wow.
That's how we help the people.
That's amazing. So,
And also in Hindu temple everywhere, it's a healthcare, eye checkup, all the community things are going on.
yes.
So if people don't have insurance, nothing, they can go there and get them checkup done.
So here you were somebody who at one time in your life didn't have access to health insurance. You had charity care through a private physician who
Right.
saw you.
Yeah.
And you took that experience to help other people in your community, to show them where the resources were.
Right.
For example, the free screenings that are done at the temple. So since this time of 2012, over the last 10 years, it's natural for other health problems to also show up in our lives.
Right.
As someone who doesn't have insurance currently, what are some of the resources that you use to help yourself and your family stay healthy?
Yeah, they have to contact the community people. They will help you a lot. There's a government program, affordable insurance are there, and if you don't pay out of pocket, there is also charity care is there for them.
Yes.
So I did my charity care and it helped me a lot. In charity care, the doctor is those are very good doctors, and also they write down the prescription and they send it to the charity pharmacy also, so I don't have to pay any out of pocket for my medicine.
That's wonderful. So Charity Care has been able to bridge some of the places where you could have fallen through the cracks. You're able to see doctors regularly.
Yeah.
And you told me a little bit when we were speaking before this panel about other health needs that you have. What were some of the other things that Charity Care made sure that you got?
The Charity Care doctor checked up everything and he told me, yes, you have this problem since a long time. So did you have a endoscopy and colonoscopy done? I say no, because it cost me out of like $4,000 to $5,000.
Yes.
So this doctor called the gastrology, and the doctor suggests me, they give me the appointment on October 25th for my endoscopy and colonoscopy.
That's wonderful. So you're
And
getting
any other requirement which you need, they are giving that to me.
that they're there for you. So in many ways, the things that you haven't been able to explore in your health and to make sure that the yearly checkups that you need, you're able to follow through because of Charity Care being available. That's an incredible resource that you've been able to use.
Yeah.
As we're thinking about, you work with many community members. You also went through a very difficult time when you first came in terms of finding jobs, looking for jobs with insurance, having a period where you didn't have insurance, and then finding Charity Care. Do you have a message for young people who are coming from the subcontinent, from India, Pakistan, about what they should look for when they're coming to the US in terms of being able to take care of their own health, their heart health specifically?
So many times people come from the different places like India, Pakistan. They don't have enough money to come to USA. That's why they borrow the money from other people. So when they enter into USA, first of all, they are looking for a job. So they start working in the store or Dunkin' Donuts, something like that. So those people are not provide the insurance. So I suggest them try to get a job with the insurance, and if you don't have insurance, just contact the Charity Care people. They will help you a lot in the future.
That is a great message, Nitish Bhai, that as a community we need to reach out when we need help, not to hide our situation,
Right.
and that there are resources available. That's a wonderful message to leave us with today. I thank you so much for your
Thank you so
time.
much for having me here. It's my pleasure.
We appreciate you and your wonderful family.
Thank you so much.
And sharing our story. Mukund Bhai, thank you for joining us today to share your experience. Can you tell us a little bit about when did you first notice that you had some difficulty with your heart health?
In 2020, I had a COVID and I had to go to the hospital for the COVID. So I went to hospital and I was admitted for 16 days. And my oxygen level were very low. Then I went to the hospital. Oh my God, I'm in trouble now. Because if I go on ventilator and everybody says, oh, this is a bad time. We don't have a ventilator in the hospital. But thank God, I never needed a ventilator. And I was in oxygen, and all the time I was lay down on my tummy. And nurses come to me and says, Mr. Patel, don't move. You want to go home? Quick. I say, yes, I want. So I had a bruise all over the place, and I was lay down on my tummy. But I learned a lot from the hospital also that after COVID, there are so many problems with your body. You can get this, you can get this, you can get a heart attack. So I was one day had a 50-50 chance in the hospital. And everybody came in and said, what happened, what happened? So they might thinking I had a heart attack. But they check everything, he says nothing wrong. Then I went after 15 days home, and then I knew that there is a consequences of the heart after the COVID. So I called the doctor, my cardiologist, and I asked him that can we do the test? He says, yeah, it's time to go for it. So I went to doctor and he says, oh, everything is fine. This time we don't have any problem. But after that, recently, in April, this time 2022, I went to my cardiologist and he said we need to do the test. So he did my EKG first, then he asked for insurance company for my echocardiogram. Then he said, let me do now stress test. And he says, stress test he did 85% good. I was running, and before the stress test I was walking 4 miles a day. And no symptoms, nothing happened when I did the test. He said everything looks okay, but wait until the report comes. After 15 days, he called me and he says, we got a problem. You have a blockage. So I had a surgery done last month and I'm here now.
Thank you so much.
So think about it, how important that heart health is. Because I'm a diabetic too. And we just heard from Dr. Mohan that is your diabetes should be controlled. All that I have one-time diabetic of 7.1, and doctor gave me warning that he did insulin. Since then, my diabetes is 6.9, 6.7. I'm controlling that. So my advice to everybody that this diabetes and heart problem is a brother and sister. Because if you are diabetic, then we heard from Dr. Mohan that cardiovascular disease comes to you easily. And we have all Asian people and South Asian people, we have problem with the heart, we know that. So, if you don't act now, then what happened to me if I wasn't acting good with my heart? Because my mother has a problem. Her 2 brothers died with a heart attack. So I knew that the genetic can come to me. And that's why I found out the deep blockage.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Mukundbhai. You touched on a lot of really important factors, and I want to, do a little bit more deeper understanding of those factors. So you heard in the hospital that one of the side effects of having COVID is that your heart can be affected. Can you tell us how often you used to check your heart health before this?
I was lucky that I was working with a big retail pharmaceutical company. And I had a very good insurance, and still they gave me for whole life, me and my wife covered. I went for my surgery, I paid $60. Think about it. So I'm covered with the insurance. So the company I work for, they require every 2 years to go for colonoscopy and heart test. That means stress test. So I used to go for 35 years for my heart checkup. And every 3 months for my diabetic checkup without fail.
You are a true champion of how all of us can take such good care of our health, to listen to the doctors, to take advantage of the resource that you had through work, and not to waste that resource, but to really make sure that you stayed on the course to good health. And then once you found out that you had some issue, it sounds like you didn't hesitate to get more intervention from your doctor.
Yeah, same time when I see my doctor and he told me that we need to go for surgery. So I said, you want me to go now? I was sitting in his office. I can go now. I don't want to play with my heart because that's very important. So he said, don't be panic, just take it easy. Let me find out how we can do it. So he knows the doctor, his friend. So he says, let me call, tell to my secretary, she will call. And I get an appointment with the doctor. And he says, we'll do the operation on August 1st. So think about it. 1.5 months, I'm here.
Absolutely.
And strong.
Yes.
And just now I walk 4 or 5 miles every single day now. Think about it. Because you have to create a mind.
Yes.
That you are right. And you have to trust your doctor. You have to trust God. Nothing will be happen if you have a strong inner mind.
That's a wonderful message, Mukundbhai, that it is your faith in both the medical system and in your own belief system about how to take care of yourself and your family. You went through a difficult time when you first came to the US, when you first immigrated in the 80s. Can you tell us a little bit about what those stressors were? What were you worried about?
Yeah, when I came in 1980, I was a professor in India in economics. Think about it, when I came here, I was knocking the door to find a job. We came home at night, oh, we don't have a job. You don't have a job. Because in 1980, that time, recession period in this country. So starting to stress, oh my God, we don't want to find a job now. So what's going to be happen? Oh, I don't want to live in this country, I go back to India. So I was deciding to go back to India, and my other family member was here, and he says, hey, try, don't lose the grip. One day he will be all right. So okay, we work hard. But the stress we had that time, it was so hard because you have to rent an apartment, you have to buy a car, you have to settle up, no riding, you have to find a job. It's everything on you. It was a hard time. Then I found a job in the retail business. But you know what? After like 1 year, I can feel it that, oh, I work with the retail business. It took a stress. And I wind up with having a diabetic and blood pressure. So now the two combined is come to me. I've been curious. I have to be very careful for a whole life now because they can kill me. And I had an ulcer. 15 years I took the medicine. I have bleeding ulcer. But I survived on that too because I took care for very good. And since then, my mother passed away here. She had a massive heart attack. And her two brothers passed away in India with the heart attack. So now I talked to the doctor and he was asking me all the questions. And I said, doctor, I have a problem in my family too. So he said to be very careful. So since then, I was going regularly with my company insurance, and for 35 years, non-stop, I'm checking, and I found a problem. And I'm surviving.
Yes, you are definitely a survivor, and you have given us such a wonderful model for how to use those resources. One of the things that happens in South Asian families is sometimes family and community can be very supportive. Other times they can provide some barriers without knowing it. What was it like in your family? How did your wife react when she found out you needed surgery?
Yeah, my wife is right there. She was very supportive when I gave her the news. When I came home from my doctor office, I said, we got a problem. She said, what happened? Oh, I have to go for surgery. She told me first word that we need to do it. And then I told her, I trust God and I trust my doctor. Because I know it's a long time ago, I trust God, nothing will happen, and I'll be all right. But one thing I did, that I have a family member all together with my two sons and their wife, my daughter-in-law. And my wife and me sat down together on one table, and I told them everything what I have on my paperwork, that my property, my bank, then my insurance, everything I discussed with them, and all the paper I have on a file, and if something happened to me, you all said to go. But I promised them nothing will happen, don't worry about it. And then my granddaughter says, my daughter-in-law says, Daddy, don't say that word. He will come back, no problem. But we need to be alert. If something is doing the big surgery. Because maybe I'm a 99% good, but 1% may be my chance. So you have to be very careful and let the family know. So they know everything in advance. If something happened to me, they can work on the issue without any problem.
So it was really important to you that your family was taken care of in the case of something, in the 1% chance that something could happen. But also, more importantly, you were taking actions that were supporting your heart health to take care of them as your role as husband and father and grandfather.
Right.
You wanted to ensure that they had someone, as you said to me in the earlier interview, that they needed me to be here.
Correct.
And I think that is a motivation for each of us to take care of our health and to be able to continue in our roles, the multitude roles.
And I have to tell you one more thing. I had a COVID on 2020 in December. January 15 came home, 11 came home. And then I heard in news that we are losing somebody. So think about it, a very close, my family member, I lost. The same day I went home. And she had a problem when I saw her before COVID. And I told her that why don't you go to the doctor because you got a big problem. I can see your legs solid. So what are you doing here? I took her, before the COVID, I took her to the kidney specialist. You know what happened? Doctor says kidney is not working at all. So she collapsed right there. At the 4 years, she was in dialysis. And then she died when I came home. So think about it. If she was taking care when I advised her 4 years ago or 5 years ago, she would not have the problem. But we are not taking care for ourselves. We are afraid from go to the doctor, and our tendency is that, oh, no problem. We'll do later on, but it's too late. After that, we go to the doctor, and doctor says, oh, same thing happened, that my relative.
Yes.
She collapsed right there.
So, Mukundbhai, it's really important what you're saying, that taking action is important and taking the right action in the right time is important.
Yes.
That's your message. Do you have any last message for other families like yours who are dealing with some serious heart issues? What would you tell them if they're concerned about the outcome of a procedure, whether they can come out of it healthy? What is your message to them?
Yeah, my message to our community, we see a lot of lectures from other doctors, and you spoke to us too. And this world is too much pressure everywhere. We are working, oh, we got pressure. You doing something, you have pressure. You don't have money, you got pressure. You don't have insurance. So all together, we are living in the life that is too hard. And we are under pressure for everything. So if the health is not there. So health is a wealth. But health is not there, you cannot do anything. You make other people miserable. People can suffer for you. You suffering yourself. So my advice to all the family, that if you have anything wrong in your body, you just go for checkup. Don't worry about anything what will happen to you. It's better to know early than late, because you are safe when you go to the doctor. Trust your doctor, trust God. And please, don't wait for health issues. Just go for it. Check up.
Hi, Manasuya. Today, we've asked you to come and speak with us a little bit about your husband's heart health issue. He had an issue back starting in the 70s and also in the 80s. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, sure. Shubhodaya, everybody. Here, Dr. Veena Murthy wanted to share my experience, what happened long time back, that is 30 years back, 30 even more than that. I was very young, and my husband was a little bit, there was a little time, age difference between me and him. One fine Sunday morning, as I was getting up, I saw him getting his shirt on and asked me, it was a Sunday morning, asked me, aren't you going to get up? I told him, you go on, I will come later. I'll sleep for a few more minutes and come. Okay, the previous evening we had gone to a party, some Indian function with some cultural activities. And it was very good. And he enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it. And also the same night we had some guests at home, a couple with the two boys. And this guest happened to be a doctor. So, my husband went with my two boys, they were 12 and 13, 11 and 12, something like that. So, to help them with their morning, paperwork, and he drove them and he came back. He was trying to make some coffee for himself and our guest. All of a sudden, our guest's heard some big noise in the kitchen. So he went and saw him, he has collapsed on the floor. He tried to wake him up, no response. So next thing he was, I heard something, I came running. I just could not believe it. And then I ran to my neighbor, knocked on her door, and please try to get some help. So anyway, to make it short, the ambulance came. They came, they worked on him for half an hour before they took him to the hospital. So once they took him to the hospital, I followed him after to the hospital, and I was waiting in the outside, and somebody gave me a message that I'm sorry we could not save you.
I'm so sorry.
And for me, I was not expecting that answer. It was the most difficult news for me, and I still couldn't believe it, I went to it, then they made me go and see him. Definitely he was gone.
He's gone. And that must have been so shocking. How old was he when this happened?
He was 49.
And how old were you?
I was 38.
38. So you were so young.
Yes.
You had immigrated to the U.S. with him. Was there any signs that this could have happened? Were there any other indicators about his risk for a heart attack before this?
Yeah, definitely. As 1978, he had gone through a bypass. He used to take the train to to Philadelphia, where he was teaching as a professor. And he felt like up in the hill, he felt like fullness in his chest. So he was very good, in recognizing his symptoms. And he said, we had a lot of family history of heart attacks. So, and then he went and he got himself checked. Definitely there was a problem with the EKG. So there was abnormalities, and finally the doctor suggested that they would do a stress test. Followed by the stress, there was the dye they inject to see how much blockages.
Yes.
Definitely he had 3 major arteries were fully blocked.
I see.
And they could only get to 2 of them. The other one was they could get to.
So they did a bypass?
Yeah, bypass.
They did a bypass surgery.
So after the bypass, he kept himself very, any symptom he would have a discomfort, chest pain, he would make sure he go to the doctor and get it checked. And doctor said, don't worry, everything looks fine. But on and on, he would tell me that, he has a slight pinch in his, there's a pinch or something like that, discomfort in his chest.
Yes.
That made me worry a lot. He's saying something and doctor says fine. As a wife, with 2 kids, I was always on the edge of my seat.
Yes. So when he had the bypass, when you found out about his risk, were there things that you tried to change about your lifestyle as a result?
Yeah. First of all, when I first got married, he was overweight for his height. He was very much overweight. That itself concerned me, he was very overweight. And then I tried to tell him, please change your food habits, try to cut down on this and that. But somehow he was not at all, he tried his best, but he was very passionate about food.
About food.
Food. I think he took a lot of comfort in food.
You found comfort in food, yes. That's a common way that many of us do deal with stress, for example. Tell me a little bit about the stressors in your life at that time as immigrants to the U.S. What were the things you were dealing with as a family?
Immigrants who come to America, before they come, they don't realize how stressful life is here. And the thing is, you had to survive. And you had to, because we came with very little resources, very little money. So he was doing his best, to keep moving. And he was very good student, he was a rank student. And all his life, he grew up poor. He struggled a lot in his life, what I see. So coming here, it was a big success for him. Just to get to America was a big success in those days.
Yes.
Yeah. So after coming here, he finished his PhD and he got a good job in the university. The stress started then.
I see.
The university, they expect him to publish. So when the tenure matter came, they had second thoughts of giving him a tenure.
I see.
He would come every day and tell me about what happened in the school. He was very open about that. He would tell me everything. That is one thing I liked about him. Yeah. So I said, well, if they need more publication, I said, you have to work on it. I would tell him, Yeah. But every Wednesday he would have a day off. Instead of working on the publication, he would work in the kitchen. Making this, making that, pickle this, yeah. That was his passion, it's okay, it's okay. But, so anyway, make it a little bit funny, as I said, that was his way to deal with the stress problem.
Yes, to cook and to feed his
Yes.
family. Can you tell us a little bit about what food meant to him? Many times for those of us who've come from India, food plays a really important role in keeping our culture alive for us here in the US. What was it like for him and your family?
He took cooking and food very seriously. For me, if I prepare something that is not up to his standard, he would be very upset. I would, if I make a joke, what is the big deal? He didn't like that answer.
So what kinds of standards, like when you described to me when we spoke earlier, what were the things that he thought of as good food? Can you tell me what he thought of as good
Of
food?
course, oil, salt, sugar.
Food.
I guess those are the three major things that revolve around our food.
Yes, that's very common in our culture.
Very common.
Yes, and so for him, food that was high in fat or with more sugar in it meant what? That he had made it in the U.S.? Was there a sense of celebration in eating food like that?
He would be very, he was an excellent cook, first of all. He knew how to cook. I didn't. Yeah. So he taught me a lot of things. It is good in some ways for me. But I would always feel, why is he paying so much attention to food?
The food was very important.
Very important. It made a difference.
So as we think about other families that may be immigrating from, India, Pakistan, and other South Asian countries, you had two young sons also. He had work stress, as you're describing, in terms of getting tenure. And you were not someone who had worked outside the home previous to him passing. Do you have a message for young families who are trying to immigrate to the US now in terms of taking care of their heart health?
Definitely what I see, there's a big change in the food habits now. Especially, I see when they go to the restaurants, these buffets, I see people, how they eat, it just scares me. Because they try to give for less money more food. And I think that is I don't like that.
You think that's a risk factor
Yeah,
for our
because
community?
after eating that kind of, even the restaurant food is not healthy because they are only trying to please the community with tasty food.
Yes.
What is tasty food? More sugar, more oil, more.
So you've made some changes in your diet. Can you tell us a little bit about things that you do to make sure that your heart stays healthy?
First of all, I try to cook everything fresh. I don't use canned foods. I usually sometimes make very light dal, soupy dal, I call it moong soupy dal. It satisfies me with a little bit of, tadka you put, little bit. And I love gardening, and I like to use my fresh own food, my vegetables from the garden. And I made some changes, instead of using you make palak paneer, instead of using the paneer, you use tofu. It tastes as good as, paneer.
As paneer.
Yeah.
And you have gotten compliments, you were telling me, on your
Yes.
paneer.
People didn't know what I had used. They said, oh, okay, they were eating, and I said, do you know what you're eating? It's tofu.
So what you're describing to us is that it's pretty easy to make some changes to our diet that can be more mindful of our risk for some severe outcomes.
Yeah, it's very easy to adapt, and you think of something, substituting to something. And, and then you feel very proud and innovative, and you did something that is,
That's good for you.
good for you.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Anasuya, for sharing your story. The details of it are very heart-wrenching, but you came here to teach all of us how we can take better care of ourselves, and for that we are very, very appreciative. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I just enjoyed all the lectures. I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Meena Murthy, and all the rest of you. And it was a beautiful presentation this morning. I learned so much. I had so many questions in my mind, and I think I got a lot of answers from the lectures. So thank you again for this beautiful program.
Thank you so much. And now I'll ask Rupa to come to the stage, please. So Rupa, thank you for joining us today. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience. You are a healthcare provider, and you had a situation very early in your life with your husband's heart health. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was?
So my husband was maybe 42 and very healthy.
Can you close it closer?
No symptoms, just very, very active, exercising every day, climbing 6-7 floors every day. That was his job, I guess. And we went for a physical exam, like a preventive exam. And he said, oh, the doctor said, let's do an EKG. We did an EKG, and we saw some abnormal beats. There were only 2 or 3 of them, and he said, I'm not really concerned, but if you're interested, we can refer him to a cardiologist. And I know, people have died young in India with heart attacks and stuff like that. So I was very keen to follow that through, and we went to see the cardiologist. When he saw the electrocardiogram, he told me there might be a blockage. Let's just do the workup. So we ended up doing the echocardiogram. And I was a resident in the same hospital. where we were doing the echo, so they allowed me into the room to look at the echocardiogram. I just couldn't believe my eyes. Instead of the heart pumping the way it should pump, it was just doing this. And I was in denial, I guess. I just couldn't believe it. So he told me, he said, see, the heart is not pumping, and we would have to do, there might be a blockage or multiple blockages. I said, okay, so we have to do what we have to do. So he said we should do a catheterization, and if there is a blockage, we can open those blockages. He gave me an appointment after 2 days, and those 2 days would have been the worst days of my life, just waiting. And this was when I was a resident in the same hospital, and the doctor knew me very well. I can't imagine with just anybody else. They don't get appointments for months, 1, 2, 3 months, and how they go through it is just something beyond me. So 2 days later, we had the catheterization, and those were the days when you had to lie flat for 6 hours after the catheterization, and they wouldn't let you get home. The doctor came to my husband's room and told him, there's no blockage, but you need a transplant. I was like, what? My husband said, I don't believe you. I mean, how can this be? I'm perfectly fine. I'm climbing stairs, I'm doing exercise every day. I just don't believe it. That's how we found out about his illness.
I see. So let's take a step back. You told us that he had gone for the regular checkup with the doctor, and the irregular heartbeats were found. Was the doctor concerned at that time?
Not really, because they were like 2 or 3 beats. It was not a run of what we call abnormalities. But it's my personality. I'm overcautious. I like to clear out everything before something happens. And I said, yeah, I want to pursue it. That's how we went to see it.
So it was you as the family member who made sure that you had a follow-up with the cardiologist. And when you went to the cardiologist, you saw that he ordered the echo, you saw that the echo was abnormal and that there was very little pumping action. What was the reaction you had as someone in the healthcare field? What were some of the things that went through your mind at that time?
I was very, very anxious, very, very scared. Because I know all the complications that happen when the heart doesn't pump. He could have had a cardiac arrest, he could have gone into heart failure, he could have had a stroke. Every living moment I was just observing him to see what was going to happen next. So that was my biggest fear.
Yes. So, and you were able to luckily follow up with that. When the doctor did the cath and said there's no blockages, get onto the transplant list. Can you tell all of us, especially those not in the healthcare field, what that means when a doctor says something like that? What did it mean to you?
I just feel that it was just thrown at us, and that was the only option that was given to us. Not even like guiding us where to go, what to do next, what should have. All that research had to be done by me. And that was not the age of the internet where we could just Google things and things would come up. We had to go to every journal that I went through, 15 articles, 20 articles was a lot at that time, to go through each journal to find out what my options were.
Yes. And so it was through this careful process of looking at what the options were that you were able to find a solution. We'll get to that in a second. But tell us a little bit about what this had, hearing that this perfectly healthy looking gentleman who was active, physically very active, the doctors weren't even going to follow up until you found a reason to, and insisted on checking out what was happening. To be told that your husband needed a transplant, that must have had some effect on how your family functioned, how you dealt with work stress. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my husband was the one who was very confident and giving me, saying, worry, nothing is going to happen. I was the one who knew all the complications that could happen, so I was really, really worried. But we started pursuing, the transplant centers. We went to various centers. Took him to at least 3 centers. And I was told he's not eligible for heart transplant. He cannot be put on the list because he's too healthy. He has no symptoms. And again, I was in square zero. I didn't know what we were going to do next. But the articles that I read, and of course, again, this common name, Dr. Meena Murthy, I would tell you, I think she is the savior in my life. We went through every article, and we came up with a name in New York, in Columbia Hospital, and we decided that we were going to take him there for a second opinion, third opinion, or whatever you would call it. When we went there, he was offering a clinical trial.
I see.
On beta blockers. We've been using beta blocker for many, many years, so I was okay. We put him in the trial, and his heart rate was pumping at 15% of the echocardiogram. In 1 year, it went to 45%.
Wow.
So that was a big relief for us that we don't have to pursue transplant and all that. 45 is definitely much better than 15.
Yes. And at that time, this took a lot of time away from work. You had to go for these appointments to the transplant centers, and you had a young child at home. How did you manage that?
And I was a resident. So yes, my colleagues, my friends, everybody stepped up. And even they were willing to take care of my daughter who was just 9 years old. And didn't know much that was going on, but knew something was not right. So a lot of support.
So you had the help of your colleagues to deal with this. Did your daughter have any questions about what was happening?
Well, I did explain to her something that Dad's heart is a little weak. Of course, did not know all the details and didn't want my anxiety on her. But she got so protective of him. She wouldn't let him carry a grocery bag. She wouldn't let him. We went to India and she wouldn't let him carry those heavy suitcases. She was 9 years old and carrying them. It broke my heart.
So she knew that Dad needed help, and she was going to do everything she could to make sure.
To date, she's doing it.
Yes.
To date.
And even now she continues in that role. And that really speaks to how connected our South Asian families are, how much we rely on each other in our roles as parents and as children. We take our responsibilities very seriously. And you as a professional, but also more importantly as a wife, wanted to make sure that your husband got the best treatment that was possible for him. Leaving us with that thought that you were able to bring his heart functioning from 15 to 45%, it's a great reason to enter a clinical trial. But many of us as immigrants have some fears about research and entering clinical trials. Can you say a few words to our community about that? What would your advice be about working with the healthcare system to find solutions to things that may not have an easy answer?
Well, I had an advantage, I would say, because I could understand what those trials mean, and I had read multiple papers on that, and I was okay with this. Of course, entering a trial is our last resort. Nothing is working, that would be a good option. But try to get more information. Now on the internet, you can Google any journals, anything, and they give you a result. If you're comfortable with it, that is a very good option. If nothing works, this will work. And we are helping science. It will help other people in the future if it doesn't help us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rupa, for sharing your experience and to encourage all of us to be active participants in our health and in the health of our families. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So in designing this panel, we had a few objectives. One of them, as we mentioned, was to understand the unique health needs of South Asians, and also to understand how their beliefs and how they think about themselves, their families, and their roles in those families, how that affects decision-making in terms of their own health. The second part of this equation is how patients and their families work with the healthcare system. And tomorrow, Dr. Meena Murthy is going to be moderating a panel on the healthcare providers, their perspectives on treating heart disease. As part of Dr. Murthy's team at St. Peter's, we assembled a wonderful team of residents, medical students, high school students, who have done a deep dive into the literature to understand from a more scientific perspective, what are some of the barriers that we as South Asians face? And there's a number of, a list of barriers that I'd just like to share with you so you can think about in your own lives as people who come from South Asia or care about someone who's South Asian. What are the unique needs that we have? So number one, as a South Asian, our ethnicity puts us at highest risk, right? If there's one thing that we should learn as we leave this conference, is that we are at risk. And if we don't know our individual risk because of family history, we need to find out. Second, nutrition, as you heard from our panelists. What we eat has cultural meaning. It also has a lot of meaning about our success as immigrants in this country. And it is probably the one factor that is most tough to change. We are not willing to change our eating habits. Third is the lack of exercise, especially for women. Dr. Kandula has a study currently looking at factors in South Asian women and girls, and especially as you think about people who have come more recently to the US. They immigrate with their beliefs about their bodies, about how much they can show themselves in public. These are deep-rooted beliefs that aren't easily changed. And in order to make our communities healthier, we need to find solutions to help our community solve these problems in a way that makes sense for us as women, as children, and as the loved ones who want to help bring a healthier lifestyle. So as we think about these barriers, I also want you to think about the context in which a lot of our health problems are occurring. As we heard from our panelists, there are issues around language. When you first come to the US, you may not know how to interact with the healthcare system here in the US, the cost of treatment, whether insurance is available through your job, transportation, regular transportation to your health appointments, prescription assistance, and whether we even know where healthcare providers that understand our unique needs exist. So these are some of what we call the social determinants of health, and we need to pay attention to those. As we think about also, as our team was investigating, well, yes, these are all the barriers and these are the things that we need to overcome. What are the things that can help us? And we found quite a few, and you heard some of those today in the descriptions that people had of their health experience. Number one is our community is very connected. We love getting together. We want to have social events and celebrate our culture. We should think about opportunities in those moments when we are connected to our communities that we can offer health messages that keep our community continuing to thrive. Secondly, we are family oriented. As you heard multiple times, it was the roles that people played as family members that was the most important in getting them to take care of their health. A lot of times we are not people who want to take care of our own needs. We're told that that's selfish sometimes, but we will do it for our family members. So that is an asset that we need to use in encouraging ourselves and our community members to seek treatment. And third, we have seen in the literature that culturally tailored treatments that take into account health beliefs and societal beliefs about our roles can change the way that we exercise. There are studies that show that both the weight of the participants in the research study, as well as their indicators like their HbA1c, were lowered when they participated in research studies that were looking at how these programs would change their health.